Number is 1-888-246-2678 as we welcome in Chris, who's next on the program, calling in from Westfield. Chris, welcome. You're on with the coach.
Hey, how's it going, Coach Paint? Just want to congratulate you on win 200 in the Big Ten and the best start in Purdue basketball history. My question is a little more on the unorthodox side. I just want to know, what is your favorite smoked meat? And are you a barbecue rub or a barbecue sauce kind of guy?
Oh, there you go. Probably ribs. I would say that's my favorite thing to do to smoke. So I get my ribs normally at Butler's down on 2nd Street in Lafayette. But I actually do both, and so but I'm more spices than anything. I don't have my own sauce or anything. I'm not that crazy. So, but no, appreciate the call. A little trivial. When we get into what you're eating for smoking meats and stuff like that, but.
Well, we can change it up every now and then. There's nothing wrong with that. By the way, Chris did mention that Purdue, because of the 17-1 start, it does match the best start in school history. The 87-88 team also started 17-1. No team in Purdue basketball history has ever started 18-1, so that will be on the line Thursday night when Purdue plays at Minnesota. Coach, I want to go back to the question last segment from Jim. He was talking about Zach Edey and staying out of foul trouble. I would like to expand that because
I didn't talk about that.
Your entire team went top 10 in the country as far as free throws allowed by the opponent.
Correct.
Your entire team has done a great job of not fouling this year.
Right. It's really been a big emphasis for us, just trying to, break the rhythm of three-point shooters, keep the ball away from the rim, and just get them into tough twos. Now, that recipe is a lot of people's recipe, right? It's not
right.
Something profound that we're only doing, but I think Zach has done a fabulous job in ball screen defense. I think our players have really grown to be able to kind of work together, and we rotate a lot better. We understand personnel better. Just knowing your personnel is so important. Who to run off the line, who you can close out short to, who's driving, who's shooting, who can do both, things of that nature, what shoulder you like to go over in the post. Just our awareness has really improved collectively. As a team, but Zach has not fouled very much. He does a good job of staying big. He's done a really good job of just doing the little things in ball screen defense. It's no different than anything else. If you want to be successful, you got to give a great effort, and you got to really lock into being detail oriented.
The other thing I would add is the fact, and you talk about this a lot, so hopefully I'm right here. Another reason you're able to stay out of foul trouble is you're not behind in your rotations. Is that right? You always talk about don't get behind in rotations.
Yeah. Well, if you just don't get behind plays, you don't get into rotations. And so a lot of what we've tried to do, and we've done, not as much switching, but we've switched in different kind of scenario situations, especially in some ball screen stuff. And you get stuck, like Zach got stuck on a guard a couple times, but we were trying to stop layups. We were trying to stop the dives. We just didn't want – their guards were getting us last year on their hip and just keeping us on their hip. And we just wanted to be able to kind of switch that off, let him take the dive guy. Now they weren't getting fouls. They weren't getting to the rim. But then Walker hit all those tough pull-ups.
Yeah, right.
But once again, you're making them hit a tough perimeter shot versus going to the free throw line or getting layups. If you stick with that model, you're going to have a lot more success. But when you get a guy like that got it going, now he can kind of change those percentages real quick because he was so hot.
30 points for Walker yesterday from Michigan State. Purdue Global is Purdue's accredited and affordable online solution for working adults. Persistence pays off at Purdue Global. While we have a second time for our Pro Boilers feature, where we look at how a former Purdue student athlete is doing in their professional sports career. Pro Boilers is presented by Indiana Kitchen, premium pork products. Get to know us at indianakitchen.com. Both our Pro Boilers and Indiana Kitchen are boiler made. And tonight we do want to say, a big congratulations to Marcus Bailey, the former linebacker for the Boilermakers, who's now playing for the Cincinnati Bengals. Third-year pro Marcus Bailey. He and the Bengals advancing in the NFL playoffs. If you watch that game on Sunday night, folks, what a way to advance with that defensive touchdown, a fumble recovery, 98 yards for what ultimately was the game-winning touchdown. So with the win, the Bengals and Marcus Bailey advance on to the next round of the playoffs. They are at Buffalo Sunday at 3 o'clock to play the Bills. For Marcus Bailey this year, 16 tackles on the season. He did have a tackle in that playoff win this weekend against the Ravens. And what perfect timing, 3 o'clock Sunday, because if you haven't heard, the Purdue-Maryland game on Sunday has officially now been set for 1 p.m. So 1 o'clock at Mackey Arena Sunday, Purdue and Maryland. Will be done by 3 o'clock, one would think, and then you can settle in and watch Marcus Bailey and the Bengals compete at 3 o'clock on Sunday. More from Coach Painter when we come back here on the Matt Painter Show, presented by GEMCO on the Purdue Global Sports Network. This is Boilermaker Basketball from Learfield.
Little horn set. And a roll to the big one. That's their lob play. Say goodnight. Put the lights out. Wow. On the rebound. How about this? A little excitement. Purdue able to jam it in here. A nice little ball screen roll. That dribble, hey, blew it up. Nice play.
So now they have to scramble it to Morton with 4. Inside, Edey listened to the crowd and scored.
How about that fine? It's a layup for these guys.
If that's the shot profile
Nice slip.
available. Oh, that is a pretty good high percentage shot. They're going to call it Kohler on an offensive foul.
And there's that little dive. Same play we've seen. Ball screen occasionally or a nice little slip. How about the footwork?
He ends up with the ball back. Sissoko couldn't clear it. Morton rummaging down the lane. Edey the follow and was off the cylinder.
Well, they've had a few of those mistakes.
Walker splits 2. Edey redirects it.
How about that? Whew. That baby hook doesn't work around that guy.
And the length, too. Trailing the play. Smith lobs it for Edey the smack.
On both ends of the floor, that little hesitation to pause every. Purdue forces you in some tough shots. Same play as earlier. Say goodnight.
Edey, good night.
Goodness. Two big time. Pause at the rim.
10 seconds to go. Lawyer, the freshman, into the post. Edey gets to the rim and scores. 2 seconds to go. Purdue by 1.
And look, just a great look by Lawyer. You got to hug him. Great opening to the passing lane. And Lawyer is a great post passer, too. Of course, the target's formidable. The pass to the correct hand drop.
Everyone needs a little playing time, so before a Purdue basketball game or any time throughout the week, stop by Walk-Ons in the Purdue Memorial Union, where it's always game day with a taste of Louisiana. That's our home for the Matt Painter radio show all season long. Walk-Ons here today in the Purdue Memorial Union. I'm Rob Blackman, your host. If you'd like to visit with the coach, you can call us at 1-888-246-2678, 1-888-246-2678. We picked up some exciting news earlier today concerning our own Fletcher Lawyer. Fletch, in case you missed it, was not only named the Big Ten Freshman of the Week, but he was also named the Co-Player of the Week. Co-Player of the Week. So Fletcher wins both Player of the Week and Freshman of the Week for his efforts last week. And, Coach, they don't even include yesterday's game as part of that voting.
Right.
And he was just as dynamite yesterday against Michigan State. What is it about Fletcher Lawyer?
Well, the thing he's been able to do, a lot of times guys will be better players, especially early, at home. Mm-hmm. They'll be better players in the first half. And so, he's done such work in the second halves of games and on the road. So you look how he played in the Penn State game, how he played in the Ohio State game, how he played in the Rutgers game, how he played in the Michigan State game. He did a lot of his work in that second half. And that, that's where you want somebody to be able to, come out that second half, be ready to roll. But he was great down the stretch against Michigan State, and well-deserved. Obviously, he scored, I think, 27 against Nebraska,
right.
And that's where this award's really coming from. But, no, he's worked very hard and very skilled, understands the game, got a level of toughness to him, but he doesn't get fazed by things. He really hangs in there and plays, and he's very confident and sure of himself. And then everybody acts like they want the ball. But you get on the road and you get down and things like that. He wants the basketball.
Yeah.
And he's obviously proven that he can step up and make some tough shots and make some key plays. Yesterday, even though he made the transition 3, I think he made a 3 in the first half.
Right.
I know, and they had they just kind of lost sight of him right there, but it was his drives. He made a pull-up 15-footer. He made that three, but he also, he had the and one going to his left. He made another drive where he got fouled, and then he made another. I think it was a right-hand layup on the left-handed side where he just kind of,
correct.
Just kind of went through the maze and kind of found his way to the rim. You kind of wondered when he started where he was actually going.
Yeah.
And he just kind of manipulated his way to the rim in and around a lot of people.
And he had the most important pass of the game.
Right.
Getting that ball to Zach. I thought Michigan State, or of course we're talking about the final play of the game offensively for Purdue, I thought Michigan State did a really good job of forcing Fletch out in an uncomfortable position, way out on the arc, but he still made a great pass.
Yeah, no doubt. I talked to him before that about trying to set him up and get him lower. So he could keep the ball elbow extended, and he got it very high. I think he was worried he wouldn't get it. So that if he doesn't get it, now you get stuck a little bit. But he obviously did a great job of throwing it away from the defense, and it actually helped because then Zach takes that dribble and then kind of makes that move, and then takes his dribble to the middle. But the guy had to come to the baseline side because he was worried about him going that way, and that gave him the momentum and the angle to make that play.
Fletch's passing probably is a little underappreciated by the fan base. He's a really good passer.
Yeah, very good. You look at his assist turnover ratio, Braden's, Ethan's for starting. You got three guys in there that do a great job of distributing the basketball, and all three obviously different players. But when you have the combination like Fletch to be able to knock down shots and to drive the basketball and also be able to pass the basketball, it really sets you up. And then you have him as your two. So when you have Braden Smith out there, in his ability to pass, which is phenomenal, and then you throw in Fletch right there, it makes for a great tandem.
Fletcher Lawyer off to a great start as a true freshman for our Boilermakers. Again, this week named the Co-Player of the Week and the Freshman of the Week. This is the Matt Painter Show presented by GEMCO on the Purdue Global Sports Network. We'll be back right after this. This is Boilermaker basketball from Learfield.
The foul against Joey Hauser. There's a foul on Michigan State as we went to the timeout. Purdue has it, and there is Fletcher Lawyer to can a three.
That he can do. That dribble, he blew it up. Nice play.
So now they have to scramble it to Morton with four. Inside, Edey listened to the crowd and scored.
How about that fine?
He ends up with the ball back. Sissoko couldn't clear it. Morton rummaging down the lane. Edey the follow. It was off the cylinder.
Well, they've had a few of those mistakes. Got to stop dribble drive if you're Purdue. Another good look there. Goodness,
Between the legs.
what's he going to do?
Lawyer wants three. He's got it.
How tough is that? And when Gillis is in, terrific offensive rebound. How about this? The poise, the balance, the delivery.
Walker splits two. Edey redirects it.
How about that? Whew. That baby hook doesn't work around that guy.
And the length, too. Trailing the play. Smith lobs it for Edey the smack.
On both ends of the floor, that little hesitation, a pause every. Purdue forces you in some tough shots. Same play as earlier. Say goodnight.
Edey, good night.
Goodness. Big time. Pause at the rim.
10 seconds to go. Lawyer, the freshman, into the post. Edey gets to the rim and scores. 2 seconds to go. Purdue by one.
Just a great look by Lawyer. You got to hug him. Great opening to the passing lane. And Lawyer is a great post passer, too. Of course, the target's formidable. The pass to the correct hand drops.
This is the Matt Painter Show. A couple of quick reminders, fans. Our next broadcast, as far as a game broadcast, is this Thursday night. Purdue is in Minneapolis, Williams Arena, to face the Minnesota Golden Gophers. That's a 6 p.m. Start time on the broadcast, 7 p.m. Eastern for the tip. So 7 Eastern tip time, 6 o'clock here on the broadcast. Matt Painter Show is live at Walk-Ons here in the Purdue Memorial Union, where it's always game day with a taste of Louisiana. If you'd like to visit with Coach Painter tonight, we certainly would like to have you. Simply call us at 1-888-246-2678, 1-888-246-2678. Coach, I asked you this question on the radio network 5 games into the Big Ten schedule. because, of course, at that point we're 25% of the way through the schedule. Now, of course, we're 7 games into it with a 6-1 record. But I'll repeat the question. What do you like about your team where you are right now at this portion of the season, and what will this team need to do to be better over the final 13 games of Big Ten play in the regular season?
Just trying to get better, especially after you win a game. I think that's probably one of the hardest things in coaching to do, because you're 1 point better than somebody, and you feel totally different if you're 1 point less.
Yeah.
It's like you did everything wrong if you get beat by a point, when in reality you did some good things still. Just like we won by 1 point and we still made some mistakes that need to be corrected. So that's always, I think, trying to keep your team on edge. You will naturally be on edge in competition. In competition when you lose, because you dissect things differently. We're learned to dissect things the same way when you win games. And so taking care of the basketball, rebounding the basketball, you always are working towards those two things. Those are the two most important things. But just trying to analyze each individual and analyze our group collectively, and get them to, to make improvements every single day, and just keep working towards the common goal of, winning a championship.
Let's head back to the phones. Nate is calling in from St. Louis. Nate, welcome. You're on with Coach Painter.
I know you touched a lot on Fletcher Loyer and even Braden Smith a little bit. Just with that confidence they have to play down the stretch of big games, especially big road games, do you start to see some of that in high school? Or is that coming more from when they get on campus and start to show their ability playing with the team?
No, I think that's who they are. You're very fortunate. A lot of times you get credit as a coach for somebody's success, when in reality it's the people that have been working with them before you get them. Now sometimes guys aren't ready. They're not ready physically, whatever that might be. And so it takes a little bit more time where you got to get them to that point where they're up to snuff to be able to compete at this level. Both of those guys are, very competitive guys. We're great high school players. But more than anything, their competitive spirit, I think, is something that you can't teach. If that's, you got to get guys where, they're just not happy to be there and they play basketball because they're big, or they play basketball to get a scholarship. They play basketball because it's their passion. That's what they love, because it gets really hard. It gets really hard and it gets really tough. People's like, hey, man, you guys won a big game. Well, we played Friday. Now we play Monday. Now we play Thursday. Now we play Sunday. So in a short period of time, there's no days off from that Friday to the following Sunday in that 9 to 10, day span. And so then you get a day off. Then you get 2 practices. Then you get to go to Michigan. So people don't understand, what did you do after the Michigan State game? We went back, we watched film and got ready for Minnesota. We watched our game, we watched Minnesota. Now we prepare for practice. And so the train keeps going. You got to be able to answer the bell. Well, those highly competitive, passionate guys, they're the ones that can, they just keep I was getting ready to say flip their switch on. They keep their switch on. And that's the way they are. And, we're very fortunate to have them.
Nate, thank you for the call. More with Coach Painter in a moment on the Matt Painter Show, presented by GEMCO. This is the Purdue Global Sports Network, and this is Boilermaker Basketball from Learfield.
Are you living on a few?
Smith can turn the corner and find. Surrounded by thunder. Caleb first, inbounds to Smith. 10 seconds to go. Loyer, the freshman, into the post. Edey gets to the rim and scores. 2 seconds to go. Purdue by 1.
You knew the big guy was going to be a presence. How about the delivery to the low box? Just a great look by Loyer. You got to hug him. Great opening to the passing lane. And Loyer is a great post passer, too. Of course, the target's formidable. The pass to the correct hand, drop step. And now the big thing for Michigan State. How are they going to handle this situation in terms of getting to half court? Looks like a screen down and a cross. Here's the screen down. You got a shot.
Walker
How good was that basketball game? How competitive?
I mean, if you wanted Big Ten basketball for 40 minutes in a nutshell, it was this thing today.
And they got to look, though. Nice little series of bumps to free him. A little frustration at the end. Boy, the strategy. The things you've got to go over to win a basketball game in this league.
Top flight basketball. Guys spilling out their guts on this floor for 40 minutes. And man, oh man, how about the side plot of Fletcher Lawyer getting the feed to Edey.
GEMCO Constructors is supporting your Boilermakers as the presenting sponsor of the Matt Painter Show. A proud partner of Purdue Athletics, GEMCO Constructors says boiler up. Let's get back to the phones. Chuck in Indianapolis is joining us. Chuck, welcome. You're on with Coach Painter.
I just checked in. So 2 comments, 1 question. Brandon Newman, who'd have thought a year ago you were going to be subbing him in for defensive purposes. So kudos to him for his hard work at that end of the floor. Second one, I was at the game yesterday, and I noticed that at the 1:31 timeout at the end, they turned off all the lights in the stadium.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem like that's a fair thing or appropriate thing to do. And then the question would be, after the Rutgers game, you mentioned that the kids need to get mentally and physically tougher. Didn't know if you could share who are the 2 or 3 mentally and physically toughest players you've coached at Purdue?
That's a good question.
That is a good one. Thank you,
yeah,
Chuck.
you got to.
That might take a while.
That might take a while. We've had some guys. The people that jump right out at me, Caleb Swanigan would be in there. Robbie Hummel would be in there. Talk about mentally tough. The thing that Robbie Hummel had that was different was just how selfless he was. So, like, if he got 4 points in a game, he would just be, just as happy. And guys that are really good, that doesn't happen all the time. They want to win, but they want some points. Right. They want some points. Caleb Swanigan's in there. I think Zach would have to be in that equation. From a physical tough, mentally tough, he's really gotten to where I think he would have to be in there. We've had some other guys that are physically and mentally tough. Are they as good as the guys I just mentioned? The guys I just mentioned, they're all Americans. And so, like, it's a little bit different. Like, you want the mentally and physically tough guys. Rayfell had that. Rayfell really grew into that. He's not as good as those guys. He was a good player, but he's not as good as the guys I mentioned. But, yeah, we've had a lot of guys. So your first question about the lights, I said something about that. And then I was quickly told by people on my bench that we did that too. So that shows you how smart I am and how aware I am of what's going on. So I was like, hey, man, you can't just turn the lights on and now we got to go back out here and play and then we got to shoot or whatever. And the ref looked at me and goes, I don't think there's a rule for that. I go, I'm not saying there is or there isn't. I go, but and then all of a sudden one of my assistants goes, well, we've done that a couple times. People do that. I'm like, oh, okay. Sorry. There'll be songs they play at the same time out. For the past 18 years I've been here, and they go, yeah, they play that at the third time out in the second half or something or whatever. You've heard it, right? I'm like, no, I've never heard that before ever at a Purdue game. They said they play it every single game and for 18 years at that timeout. I'll be like, no, never heard that. So,
well, you have more important things to worry about, I think, during the timeouts.
Yeah.
Our final segment of the Matt Painter Show. When we come back, it's presented by GEMCO. It's the Purdue Global Sports Network, and this is Boilermaker basketball from Learfield.
Set. And a roll to the big one. That's their lob play. Say goodnight. Put the lights out. Wow.
On the rebound.
How about this? A little excitement. Purdue able to jam it in here. A nice little ball screen roll. And dribble. Hey, blew it up. Nice play.
So now they have to scramble it to Morton with 4. Inside, Edey listened to the crowd and scored.
How about that fine? It's a layup for these guys.
Shot profile
nice slip.
Oh, that is a pretty good high percentage shot. They're going to call it Kohler on an offensive foul.
And there's that little dive, same play we've seen. Ball screen occasionally or a nice little slip. How about the footwork?
He ends up with the ball back. Sissoko couldn't clear it. Morton rummaging down the lane. Edey to follow and was off the cylinder.
Well, they've had a few of those mistakes.
Walker splits two. Edie redirects it.
How about that? Whew. That baby hook doesn't work around that guy.
And the length, too. Trailing the play. Smith lobs it for Edie to smack.
On both ends of the floor, that little hesitation to pause every. Purdue forces you in some tough shots. Same play as earlier. Say goodnight.
Edie, good night.
Goodness. Two big time pause at the rim.
10 seconds to go. Lawyer, the freshman, into the post. Edie gets to the rim and scores. 2 seconds to go. Purdue by 1.
Just a great look by Lawyer. You got to hug him. Great opening to the passing lane. And Lawyer is a great post passer, too. Of course, the target's formidable. The pass to the correct hand drop.
Time for our final segment here with the Matt Painter Radio Show tonight, again on a Tuesday night, and we do appreciate those of you that had to alter your listening habits to join us on a Tuesday. Back to next Monday, the regular schedule Monday, next week 6 o'clock, and then we'll be on the Monday schedule the rest of the season from 6 to 7. Time for a little nugget here at the end, and I'm going to pat myself on the back on this one because I put a lot of time and effort into this one today. A lot of time and effort into this one. To the point where I had to give up my afternoon nap, which I rarely do, but I gave up my afternoon nap just for this one. And here we go. Starting with Purdue's game yesterday against Michigan State, the Boilermakers are now playing 5 games in a row in which all 5 of the opponents, the school, has the same first letter for their name, their school name, because it goes in this order: Michigan State, Minnesota, Maryland, Michigan, Michigan State. That's 5 in a row, 5 M's. So you're thinking to yourself, Rob, has that ever happened in the history of Purdue basketball? It has not. We have never played 5 schools in a row where every single one of the schools, the school name started with the same letter. Never. I looked it up today. I looked up every single schedule. That's why I told you I couldn't even take my nap this afternoon. Here's how close we've gotten. We've gotten close a few times. Who could forget the 1900-1901 team of Alpha Jamison? Coach Jamison started the season by playing Lafayette High School in 3 straight games, and then he played Logansport High School. So 4 L's in a row. But then he played Culver High School, so he had to stop at 4. What about the 1943-44 team with Ward Lambert as the coach? Who could forget the 43-44 Boilermakers? When Coach Lambert played Minnesota in back-to-back games and then Michigan in back-to-back games. 4 M's in a row, but not 5. He never got to 5. Let's fast forward to the 1974-75 season. Fred Schaus, the head coach. In 74-75, again, we got close. Fred played Michigan, Michigan State, Minnesota, Missouri, got to 4, but the next game was Arizona. So we stopped right there at 4. And then Coach Cady, of course Coach Cady, he got close. Coach Cady in the 98-99 season. Minnesota, and then at Minnesota. So back-to-back games with Minnesota. Michigan State, then Michigan. There's 4. But then Purdue moved into the NCAA tournament, and the first-round opponent was Texas. The irony, after beating Texas, Purdue played Miami of Ohio. They were that close to having 5 straight M's, but even Coach Cady could not play 5 straight M's on the schedule. He, too, only got to 4. But for our Boilermakers, you will be witnessing history, fans, over the next couple of weeks, because we'll play 5 M's in a row. Michigan State, Minnesota, Maryland, Michigan, and Michigan State. Now you can see why I was patting myself on the back. That's one of the all-time great nuggets. I'm sorry, everyone. That's one of the all-time greats. Took a lot of time, by the way. Had a little migraine after that one, actually, looking at all that small print earlier today on the Purdue schedule. Speaking of that schedule, so Thursday night, Purdue's at Minnesota, Williams Arena. That is a 7 o'clock tip, 6 o'clock for our broadcast. We hope you'll join us then. And then Purdue Sunday, 1 o'clock at home against Maryland. Our pregame broadcast begins at noon on Sunday. Big thank you to Ethan Sargent, our in-studio engineer today. Thanks to Wes Scott, who engineered on site. Big thanks to everyone who was out here with us tonight, including Hunter, who worked things behind the scenes. For Coach Painter, I'm Rob Blackman. Have a great week, everyone. This is Boilermaker Basketball.